anybody who's a co-host, you might have to hit okay. But other than that, let's introduce Jan, our fearless leader.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. I see right now we have 43 participants. Outstanding. Welcome everyone. Just a couple of announcements. We're going to be representing the Bead Society at the Anoka County Fair. It's coming up on July 24th. And we need one representative for that. And Marlene Morris is the contact on the website. You can get to Marlene's email.
I have room for 2 more people.
Oh, 2 more. Okay,
Yeah.
very good. And then also the Twin City Bead Bazaar the dates are official now, October 26th and 27th. That's the last weekend in October. And we're going to expand our make and take tables this year. So we need more teachers for make and take. The Bead Society will supply materials, but if there's something that, can be easily made in a short time for maybe a relatively new beader, this is a great opportunity to try doing some teaching. And you can contact any board member for that. Marlene is again the contact for that. And then the other exciting thing that's coming up is that this is our 35th anniversary. Hard to believe.
Wow.
But we've been around all that time, and we're going to have a really nice anniversary party on October 13th from 1 to 3 p.m. Or excuse me, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have lots to do. We're going to have gifts and door prizes and all kinds of fun things going on. We have a speaker. So please put that on your calendar and reserve that date. There will be invitations that will be sent out. And I think, Rochelle, I think that's all I've got.
And so
we are going to send out invitations to the party. So if you have moved, please email Becky Pancake with your new address so that you get your invitation.
super. All right, so then next we have our upcoming Let's Bead Live. And that's June 15th, and Lisa Dooley is our Let's Bead Live teacher for that event.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. So it was kind of a short notice, so I did not have a chance to complete the project that I wanted to teach on June 15th. But anyways, I thought about teaching peyote with a twist, not crochet. And it's going to be an even count. So let me switch my camera. I have little strips that I can show you.
I like it.
So this is one that I did with true 2mm fire polish beads.
Those are so
size
sparkly, I
11
love them.
seed beads. So that's one of them. And then the other one, the more traditional, is just 2 colors of size 11 seed beads. And I would not mix the Toho and let me get back to the camera. There we go. I would not mix the Toho brand with the Miyuki. Either use the 2 colors of Toho or the 2 colors of Miyuki seed beads.
Okay.
And thread, you can use Fireline or the Toho 1G thread or whatever you like to use. And again, if you are going to use the fire polish, only use the true fire polish beads. And I would say you probably, I will have the materials list and everything for you in the next day or two on UMBS website. But I would say probably a 15-gram tube of seed beads in the primary color. And then I don't know how many of the line, how many grams you would need for that. So I would just say, 2 tubes of seed beads. And then the fire polish one, I would probably say about 100 fire polish, probably a little bit more just in case. So, but at least 100.
Wow. Okay.
Do you sell those on your Etsy design page, the little tutus?
I don't right now. I could. I'll have to see how many I have. Like I said, I was just trying to whip up this project real quick. So, didn't have a lot of time to plan for it. I do not have kits for this in my shop. I think most of us have size 11 seed beads. So you can use your own supplies. I will see about the true 2mm fire polish beads and get those listed also in my shop.
Is
Super
this going to
duper,
be
we're so-
recorded for the people that can't make it this month?
Yes.
Yeah, all of our
Okay.
meetings are always recorded. So tonight's meeting will be on the private YouTube channel after tonight, but the Saturday Let's Speed Lives are on the public YouTube channel so that everyone can see them. And the links and the patterns are always on the archive page of the website. So you can easily go back to any of Lisa's classes and click her patterns and download and watch, you know, past ones that she's done as well.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're so excited. Thank you so much for, you know, you're a champ. And we really love your style too. So you bling up everything a little bit in a special way.
Thank you. That's really nice. And thank you, Hannah, for listing my Etsy shop too.
Okay,
The
so we check.
pattern, I will try to have the pattern done by the end of the week, probably not until Monday of next week. But the supply list I'll have done for sure in the next couple of days.
And then that will be up on the calendar page on the UMBS website
Okay.
as soon as, so
So,
look
you
for
know,
the website.
Lisa, I can just go on and put the needed seed beads for you, you know, because you've said what's needed, so I can just put that down. You don't need to send out anything extra. However, if you have a pattern at some point, you should get it to us so I can put it up on the
Okay.
website.
I will do that. And like I said, I'll try to aim for the end of the week, probably not until Monday of next week.
No
Okay.
worries. It's worth the
All
wait.
right,
So
I'll put up the
thank you.
beads that people need, at least the 2 trues and the size 11s, either Mayuki or Toho, either or, not both, not mixed. I'll let people
Correct.
know.
And you know, fire polish, it's just an option.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. It's just the 2 different colors of seed beads that are needed.
Yep, got it. I'll put that up there. Yep.
And you know, I know how much people love size 15 seed beads. So if you know you want to work with those, you could use those.
I think
My
I'm gonna
favorite-
start
And
with
you could also
11.
do it in size 8 if you want to get it done faster. You really
No.
could, I'm sure.
Yeah,
might
I
be a
haven't
little
tried it with size
looser.
8. But I will definitely give that a try and see. It might show a little bit more thread, but
Oh, but that might be pretty.
it
You
might
never
be,
know.
especially
I
if
don't
you're
know.
using the Toho 1G thread.
Right, because like chenille stitch, you see a lot of the thread and it doesn't bother me. So you never know. I'm
I love
interested to
1G.
try. So June 15th, mark your calendars, 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time. We'll start at 1 and who knows when we'll finish. So everybody come at 1. All righty. Super
Thank you,
duper. And
Lisa.
then our July, we're so darn excited. We have Doris Coghill for both of our July events.
Yeah.
She's going to be our speaker for our Monday night meeting. And tell us about what you're doing, Doris.
For the monthly meeting, I'm going to do a presentation on bead making around the world. So I'll take you inside the factories in India, Czech,
wow.
and Japan.
Wow.
So you will get to see what the inside of the factory looks like and what a bead looks like before it's made into a bead and how they actually do that, both seed beads and pressed glass. And then I will also be bringing some goodies to sell because, you know, you can't have a in-person meeting without stuff to sell.
Hey, we
And
were hoping you're going to say that.
yeah. And then for the Let's Bead Live, I think probably just about everybody knows about or has done a spiral rope at one point or another. That was actually one of the very first patterns that was available online, and everybody loved it so much. It was called the Internet Spiral back in the 90s. So everybody kind of knows how to do that. And I'll put a basic pattern on for that, but I'm going to show you variations with just, and if you've done the Internet Spiral, you'll know that it looks totally different depending on what kind of beads you use. And you don't even think you're at the same pattern. But with just a few more thread stitches, you get what looks like Cellini, and it's not. It's Internet Spiral
Nice.
or spiral rope, depending on what you want to call it. And just another few variations.
There you go.
And you would never know that it's the same pattern.
I love it.
Everything I showed was almost the exact same pattern. So we'll give you the basic and then explain to you how to do all the variations.
And do you have like a basic bead count? Like if you're using 3mm, 4mm, you might need 68 or
No, because
144 or anything, or
the basic thing to remember is that you should use a size 8 for the center core, never an 11, or you'll be cursing at yourself because you can't get the needle through the beads. But then whatever you want to use for the loop is fair game. You just need to have an odd number of beads in your loop.
I love
But
it.
they can be all seed beads. You could do 10 seed beads in a loop. You could do 5 seed beads in a loop. You could do 4 seed beads in a fire polish, 4 size 11s and an 8, 3 size 8s and 2 11s. It just whatever, anything goes.
I love
Which
it.
I think why it was so popular when it first came out.
Well, we all have tons of weird things on our bead trays. A little bit of this left, a little bit
Yeah,
of that.
that
So that
works.
works great. Very excited. So that is July 22nd, right?
20th.
July 20th, Saturday at 1 o'clock Central Time Zone. Yay! And that'll be Zooming. But your July 1st meeting is in person at the Carondelet Center and Zoom. So we'll be meeting in person at 4:30 for shopping and beading, and then we'll start show and tell at 6 o'clock. And then the meeting will start at 6:30. And so the Zoom will start for show and tell. So that way you can join us no matter where you're from. Yay. Looking forward to all of it. All right. Who's next?
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank all of the folks who donated beads to me throughout the year.
Oh,
I work for a 50, what is it? 1C389, whatever it is. I don't know. I work for a nonprofit, and I was able to send 4 boxes of beads to camp for the summer. I do feel a little sorry for the art specialist, but I'll help them out. So thank you for everybody who donated.
Could I get your address? I have a bunch of beads. I don't know if I'll send them to the D stash next month or send them to you. But I do. I have an entire box of beads that I'm getting rid of right now. So
Sure. Can I give you my address in New York so that I don't have to haul them?
yeah, if you want to just post it, just put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat.
Yep.
And then I can take it from there.
okay.
Okay. And then y'all
Thank
can
you.
write too.
Thank you.
That works. Huh.
Did we lose Rochelle?
There we go. I hear people now.
Yeah, I think we lost Rochelle.
Rochelle's been having trouble with her computer, so we may have lost her. And
She'll come
she'll
back.
probably, yeah. No, that's the Upper Midwest Bead Society is Jan, so.
Took me,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So what do you think? Should we talk a little bit about the, Dan, can you talk a little bit about the case at the Minnesota State Fair? Or Marlene, are you in charge of that this time?
Yeah. What you want to know?
Well, I've forgotten what the theme is again, so, and maybe you can say what the theme is and how to get stuff to you.
Jan, you want to chime in?
Sure.
I've
The
got it
theme,
written down.
the theme is the Great Bead Escape, which we chose simply because we feel that beading is kind of an escape for us with all the craziness that's going on. Ah, here's Team Toho coming back on. We're looking for display pieces to go into a case that it's not going to be judged. It's just kind of a representative sample of the work that the UMBS does. And Marlene is the contact for that. And again, you can reach her through our website. And I don't know what else.
Oh, they can drop their pieces off at Lotus Beads
Oh, that's right.
or get them to me if they run into me or something, but they can
Good.
let me know they have a piece and then I'll make sure I'll get it.
All right, and I see Rochelle. She's still muted.
Who's that from?
Unmute, Michelle. Rochelle.
She's
He's
trying to. Oh, she must be on a phone. And apparently phones are a little bit trickier.
Well, I'm
So-
excited for tonight because I went through my stash and I actually have 8 of her books.
Oh, wow. That's great.
It's one of
Anna,
the
do you
first
have
ones, isn't it, Marlene?
What?
That's one of her first ones, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
It is the first one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I got that one.
I
got
also have
that
4 or 5.
one. And I got
So-
that one.
Didn't
So
she
then
have,
the
didn't she have like a series of?
Yes,
of-
and then I
like-
have them too.
Yes.
Yeah, I have all
Where
of those
would-
would, do you know where I can find all of those?
on
I
Amazon.
I can only find like one of them.
Amazon
I got
has
Amazon.
Whoever's the
Uh,
host, you can actually request that Team Toho unmute. There's a button you can, no, she figured it out. I see that. You're good.
Okay, I think I did it.
Yeah, we
Yay.
hear you.
Yay! Oh my gosh, super duper. Thanks, everyone. So what was the question?
I'm wondering where I can get the series of 4 books.
They should be on, Amazon has all
That's where I
4.
got mine, Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, they have both, paperback and hardcover now.
Okay.
And, Barnes and Noble, if you have a thing against Amazon. But, generally the easiest place to find them is online, booksellers.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, Rochelle is muted again.
Oops. Can yeah, so let's just take it away. I'm sorry, on my phone, my computer is updating, so I'm only on my phone, so you're all gonna have to handle it, but I can hear and watch. You can start and introduce and we can start our PowerPoint anytime you like.
Well, shall we introduce Jamie first? I'm so happy to have her here. And would you like me to introduce her?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, Jamie is a professional bead artist, a teacher, and a perpetual student of her craft. And for over 2 decades, her original designs have been collected by buyers in fine galleries across the US. And I don't really need to be introducing her because I think everybody here knows her. But her design contributions include projects in beading with World Beads, including one of their cover designs. She's been featured in numerous publications, including a fabulous book by Margie Deeb, which most of us know and have, called The Beader's Color Palette. She's won tons and tons of awards for her beadwork, and she continues really leading the way in the originality and quality of her work. Her author journey began in 2005 with Beading with Cabochons, which I think we've already seen a couple of covers here as people show them, and it's been referred to as the classic for that form of beadwork. Her recent work is the Bead Embroidery Techniques series of 4 volumes, which we also talked about, and in between are numerous beading books, including the bestseller Guide to Beading on a Loom. And we are so pleased to have you here today, Jamie. We're so excited, and I'm going to stop talking and let everybody listen to you.
Okay. Well, let's see. Let me go ahead and get started. I'm happy to be here. This is wonderful. Let's see. There we go. Does everybody see that? We're all set?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to talk about beading evolutions. I'm gonna go from the macro and talking about beading, and then to the micro being me. So what we've got is no, it doesn't want to. Oh. So beading is as old as recorded time. You've heard the saying that prostitution is the oldest profession. They don't even come close to us beaders. They're nowhere. Beading is far older. They have tons of beadwork from 30,000 BC. So our pedigree and lineage from caveman beading, but he looks kind of naked. There we go. Here's our caveman and the beading. I won't tease you. This is what the necklace actually looks like. This is a check glass button. So here's where the shocker came in. These are eagle talons. And when the archaeologists dug this up, this is from the Neanderthal time, which is way earlier than cavemen. They found marks and polishing facets, which revealed that this had been manipulated into jewelry. This is how far back this goes. So the previous discoveries before this were like 100,000 years ago, but they had always been where humans had existed. And this necklace is the first evidence that Neanderthals also created jewelry. So why beads and beading? Sociologists have determined from all of this, and the archaeologists, that we have a profound need to decorate both ourselves and our surrounding. This need is so profound that what you find is that beads exist throughout history, all cultures separated by vast periods of time, vast amounts of space. Everybody has jewelry and everybody has beads. They differ because cultures would have different capabilities and they would have different resources, but it all comes down to they all had beads. So beads were so valued that they actually became currency. You've heard the story of Manhattan, which was purchased for beads, and you've heard the term trade beads. Well, trade beads were actually
No.
used as currency.
I need a little more. That's why I asked you to bring it in. Sorry. I'll go.
Are we okay? were actually used as money on the trade routes. So when we went through the financial crisis, okay, the market's tanking, everything's, everybody's house is worth half, everything's going bad. I told my husband, I said he didn't need to worry because we were going to be rich. I had all these beads. So when everything just goes really down the toilet, we're going to be fine because I have the beads. Needless to say, he wasn't convinced, but let's be honest, we do not use our beads as currency. We use currency for beads. That's where we're at. Okay, so that's a very short macro look at beadings in civilization. I think it's interesting to look at how profound and how deep that this all goes. So now let's take a little look at the evolution of beads themselves. So beads evolve, and it really has to do with what's going on. So initially, the first beads were made of found objects, like the eagle talons that we saw before. Shells, bone, teeth, nuts, whatever somebody could find and get a hole in it, they would use it to create, they'd string it and use it to create necklaces and bracelets and hang things from their caves or abodes or whatever. Then civilization, brought in stones where they developed ways to take stones and be able to manipulate them to grinding and carving. So you have people who are like, okay, I'm going to take this stone, I'm going to make a rectangle, and I'm going to build a castle. And then you have people like us who go, no, I'm going to take stones and I'm going to make beads. So the same thing with metals, as people learned to, and they discovered ore and how to deal with it and whatever. Again, you have people going, okay, I'm going to make a knife, I'm going to make a sword. And then there's us, we're going to make beads. Glass making deserves a special mention because that isn't just one thing. Okay, metals, it would evolve to the different, as each different kinds of metals that were involved take place. So you originally had gold and silver and they were very soft, but then coppers and different things. But glass making really went through evolutions all on its own. And with each advance, which each new technique, starts out somebody's making a window, somebody's making beads, and then they got blown glass and people are making vessels, other people are making beads, but beads followed along the whole thing. And then we get to seed beads. And yes, these are glass, but I'm going to give them a special mention only because nowadays that it's a very important kind of bead for beaders. So initially, the Czechs really had a monopoly on it. And let's go back to the 70s and 80s. They were the only ones really doing a lot. Oh, the French had a few beads and things like that. But the Czechs really had a monopoly, and they would determine the colors and they would determine when you were going to ship it. And that it was very difficult situation. And to be clear, the uniformity of the shape, the uniformity of the hole, the uniformity of the color from batch to batch, it was bad. Guy in Japan got quite upset. He was a loom beater, and he said, that's it. So he is the one who developed and invented delicas, which were originally developed for loom beading. Now, then it really took off, and they have, then rocailles from Japan and other places, in Singapore and various places. So now the Czechs really had some competition, and they have really stepped up their game. More colors, more availability, more everything. But the real key to these in seed beads and the development of seed beads is the larger hole. Same size bead on the outside, but the hole itself is larger. when you were beading back in the 70s with these check beads, you were limited really kind of on your designs because you could only count on maybe getting through that hole once or twice, and you had to cull them out. There were some you couldn't even get the needle through. So if you were really pushing it to go 3 times, well, that really limited your beading. You get a bigger hole and it's consistently bigger, that really explodes the whole design thing. You can go through it 5 or 6 times. And then you get into, you know, then the triangles and cubes and drop beads and fringe beads. And then we won't even talk about the 2-hole beads. That's a whole nother, has just exploded with all of this stuff. And of course, we still continue to absolutely love our size 11 seed beads and stuff. So the key about this is it's an additive process. We didn't stick with any of those. As the next point came on, we didn't eliminate the ones before it. So shells, the found objects and shells, found objects being you see them with the teeth of a shark teeth and this and that, and shell. So it's always been an additive process. We'll look at some examples. What's in the fringe here, these are sea urchin, and of course we got some stone there. This has shells at the bottom of the fringe, and the fringe has bury nuts in there and carved and seed. I'm partial to shells, particularly partial to mother of pearl, actually. And some coral and mother of pearl beads and shells. This has a lot of shells at the bottom, and within the fringe, there's some other shell beads that are cut like hishi, and then wood and carved bone. But these would all be in the found object category. And lastly, the Asamina shell is in the upper right. And I just love these everlasting shell things. And they're in resin with turquoise. Oh, and a shell actually used to create the cabochon. So now let's get to stone. This is a stones, rocks, lapidary. This is all my wheelhouse. This is my favorite kind of thing. So on the left, this would be kind of like the earlier versions of the earlier things where you'd have little chips of rock or whatever, and you were able to get a hole through it. Whereas the one on the right, this is the full bone. We have grinding and polishing to create the beads in the necklace. We have carving on the scarab, and then carving on the drop beneath. Fossils are really fun to add into our beadwork, and that would be in the stone category. So we have stones and fossils and some carved stones there. Here we got sodalite and lapis and hematite, and the center top one are some sodalite chips and resin. So when we get to metals, and there's all kinds of metals, and this kind of is how we didn't have them all at once. This kind of evolved and we added to it. So metals are used a lot in beading, obviously as beads themselves, metal beads, which you can see in the butterflies, and the roses and filigrees, and also charms like the birds, and also the ends of the fringe. So metal is often used, and metal is not just the clasps, not just the hooks, which can be of themselves very decorative and actually worn in the front, not necessarily in the back. They're not just functional. So we got our little snake, and then also chain. So our little octopus, and chain is obviously part of the metal category, and chain used a lot, and the filigree. And there's little metal drops at the end here. So then we get to glass. So everything from pressed glass used in the necklace parts and in the fringe parts and bottom of the fringe to lamp work. This is a Ginger Sanders lamp work. This is dichroic glass. There's something very, I don't know, cool for me about glass. The intensity of color that you can get and the uniformity of the color within the piece. And even if it isn't color, like these are pressed glass little shoes and dominoes, and the title of that necklace is called Games, obviously. Okay, and we can't forget crystal. Whether it's Rivoli's or any of the other shapes, crystal is a huge part of the glass part of the bead world. And here's a little lampwork guy and some lampwork or pressed glass in the fringe and whatever. And we'll just look at a few little seed bead things. This necklace is primarily seed beads. And of course, it's not just the body, our house, our Christmas tree, or whatever. We want to use a lot of seed beads. And they're the transition, they're what helps us use some of the other beads, as really shown in these ornaments. This is a lot of pressed glass and whatever. The center is a clear glass dome that is backed by a painting that my sister did. So this one is kind of special to me. Okay, so let's look at the evolution of beaders. And we'll discuss each phase, and you can identify and see where you stack. Now, let's be clear, this is not scientific. This is just me and my observation. So we start out as a casual beader. Casual beaders, they're interested. They experiment. Now, they buy what they need for their project. The project determines their purchases. There's not a stash. They're kind of casual about it. And what develops next is the user. The user is identified. The user would learn more techniques, obviously buy more beads, and they're going to have a small stash. It's not going to take over the house, but they're going to have a small stash. They're going to buy books. They're going to go to classes. This is beyond casual. They're in the user. And then we get to addict. Hello, my name is Jamie, and I'm a beadaholic. So what characterizes a addict? You kind of know. You'll give up that Starbucks cup of coffee to buy more beads. Maybe even give up some clothes purchases. Your stash becomes substantially larger. You work on increasing your stash. Another characteristic, and you may identify, is you hide your purchases from your family, your spouse, your friends, because they don't get it. They don't understand the joy that those purchases bring. And, you don't want to fight them. So you just hide your purchases. You surround yourself with enablers like bead friends. You get a lot of bead friends. You join a club. Hello. My guess is that we have more than one addict within this club. And let's be clear, you cannot leave a bead store with less than a $20 purchase. Then the final evolution in a beader, if you go beyond addict, is me, the pusher. So yes, I'm a pusher. This would be authors, vendors, teachers. So the pusher, when they were an addict, if there was a 2-day bead show, they'd be at the bead show all 2 days. Now, as a pusher, they're still at the bead show all 2 days. It's just they're on the other side of the counter. Okay, so we've gone from macro and beads and the whole thing. So we'll I'll talk about my evolution. Obviously, I'm influenced by all the things that sociologists talk about. I have a need to decorate, I need to individualize, and I need to create. These are strong impulses within me that are, it's not the same for everyone. And but each one of these is a very strong need and impulse within me. So here's two pieces. The one on the left is from the first Fire Mountain contest, was in 2005. It was the first time they did it. And it was the first contest I had ever entered. And I found it fascinating. So you had to abide by the rules. Everything had to be, from Fire Mountain and purchase. So it was interesting to see, what can I do? How can I come up with something? Because let's be clear, they didn't have really interesting cabochons till I found this one within a mix. And these are moonstone chips and moonstones. And the one on the right was like a couple of years later. But I found it fun. And what I liked about their contest is there was no entry fee. And you could actually win some bead money. So as I go through the rest of my evolution, I'm going to show pictures of beaded pieces. And this will just kind of roll on as I ramble and talk. So the first group is pendants. I'm going to give a special shout out to pendants because a lot of bead embroidery is very more. It's big collars and big bracelets and large everything, but I really love pendants. I love the simplicity and the wearability. I find them very fun to create. What it allows you to do is experiment. You can experiment without taking up a whole lot of time. A pen versus making a giant bib or collar, you're really doing that. So they're fast to create and fun to experiment. And it just works for me. I find it very fun. I've always loved jewelry. And I like to decorate myself with jewelry. I remember back in high school, I had this dark brown dress. Yes, I was in high school at a time when you girls had to wear dresses. There were actual dress codes and stuff. So I had this dark brown dress. And I got this necklace, this beaded necklace that had bright turquoise and wood beads and all these shapes and everything. You put that necklace on that dress and it was killer. And I've never forgotten that, how you can take a nothing and make it really sing. And it was the beads that did it. So jewelry does influence how I dress. I'm mainly into separates, plain, classic, solid colors. It makes it easy to shop. And I'm going to use the jewelry to make my outfit pop. All right. So my normal at this stage of my life, my uniform is blue jeans and a shirt, often a t-shirt, solid color, whatever. But I put a necklace on before I leave the house. I don't care if I'm just going to the grocery store. The necklace has got to come on. So it's like, oh, hubby's like, well, let's go out to lunch. Come on. I'm like, wait a sec. I got to put on a necklace, to the point where I feel a little naked and dowdy if I don't have it on. And pendants are perfect for this kind of thing. They're the art of simplicity. It's like, get out of the way, and they make a statement on their own. The statement for me with pendants is made by the cab or the focal. I'm not making the statement. It's telling me what it wants. It's telling me how it wants me to design it, and I let them design themselves. Obviously, what this means is that you want to have a lot of techniques in your toolbox so that you can create the vision. So the materials can talk and you have the tools via the techniques to create that vision. And it really helps to not get bored. If you're selling, so I got an email from a gal who she had recently purchased my bead embroidery techniques with bezels book, and she just wanted to thank me. She sells her beadwork at shows, and the best seller is pendants because it's something that the average person just feels more comfortable in. Plus the price point is better. And so she beads a lot of pendants, and she was getting bored to death. And the bezel book just what made it fun again for her, because she could try this, she could try that, and it actually changes the different things that you can use in the focals. So that's what I mean about techniques taking over. So now I'll get into some of my influences. A lot of what I do, in my opinion, and how I approach things have to do with when I started, which was in the 80s, and more get into it more even in the 90s. But there wasn't internet. The internet was, for scientists. There wasn't a bead shop in town. It was, hard to get it. Now there was Prodigy, and when I got onto Prodigy and I found a bead group, it was such fun. But let's be clear, it is so different from, what we know of as Facebook today. You couldn't upload pictures, you couldn't upload various things. So it was very text. But I'll tell you what, we got real creative with our dots and dashes and arrows and being able to draw things. And it was very heavily centered on brick stitch and peyote, big time, and also loom, not so much. So I was lucky to be able to go to in this area lapidary shows, so that helped out. And I remember a trip to Long Beach. This was back in the early 90s. Long Beach it's a ways. I'm kind of in Northern California. That's way south. So it was like an 8-hour drive to get to Long Beach. But I wanted to go to this craft show. Hubby was nice enough to take me. He's a sweetie, was a keeper. And there was a vendor there. This wasn't a bead show. This was a craft show. There was all kinds of stuff. Very few beads. But there was a vendor, and he had delicas. And this was one of the first delicas that were allowed into the US. And I was just fascinated. Unfortunately, they were super expensive, and you had to buy a kilo. Well, I wasn't ready to buy a kilo of any one color of bead at the time, so I didn't. But I will never forget that. I can still see in my mind this guy in his booth and those delicas. Okay, so another influence I'm strongly influenced by was my sister. She's an artist, and she sold her paintings at art shows and in galleries. And she introduced me to some galleries to take some of my work. When you're selling and all of this, and your family looking over your shoulder, and she had been a professional artist for a while, you kind of get serious about it. You get serious about your art, serious about creativity, and 3 things that were important. The first thing was quality. The second thing was quality. And the third thing was quality. You've heard about, in location, there's only 3 things that matter: location, location, location. Okay, so quality materials, quality workmanship and construction, and quality design. So quality materials, everyone loves quality materials, but you really drill down and so my stash, there are no silver line beads, because burn me once, shame on you. burn me twice, shame on me. I had used silver line beads early on, and I had this beautiful loomed pouch, and it had these gorgeous silver line beads. And lo and behold, you look at it after about 5 years, and they were black because it's actual silver and it tarnishes. Well, I'm a control freak, and I can't have my beads do something without me telling them to do it. And I never told them to do it. So I don't have any silver line. I'm cautious with coated things. I'm cautious with dyed. So dyed, you often don't know, and especially with stones, 90% of the genuine stone things you see out there are manipulated in some way. And dye is a huge part of it. And I'm not particularly against it, but I did have a necklace that I had in a gallery, and it was purple, and it had a purple cabochon center and a lot of fringe and all of this. Well, they put it in the window, unfortunately, in Florida for a month or two. And after a month or two, that center purple was no longer a blue purple, but it became a red purple. And then it looked really ugly with the rest of the stuff. So I am sensitive to those kinds of things. I'm sensitive on findings. I want good quality clasps. And I also am sensitive on how they're attached. If you've read my books, you've heard the lecture, I'm always attaching all findings with 2 jump rings, because I don't like using split rings. They're difficult to use. And if it's 2 jump rings, they're easy. Because in my mind, those clasps are going to break before my beadwork is going to fall down. And if they're put on with a couple of jump rings, then it's easy to change the clasp. I can change it from gold to silver. You know, some people have a thing about it, and especially with bracelets. If it's put on with jump rings, easy to change from gold and silver, changing the clasp breaks. The thing is, especially with bracelets, if you want to, you know, 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 an inch is a huge amount difference between a bracelet fitting or not fitting. So you can make it smaller, you can make it larger just by changing the clasp. And if it's put on in such a way, so if you sew it on, to me, there's stress that doesn't need to be there in the beadwork by sewing it on. Also, you don't, you can't, I don't want to see the threads. You could probably do it without seeing the threads, but you're never going to be able to change that clasp without taking your beadwork apart. Okay, and the workmanship, the front and back. Okay, this matters. So if you're a member of Bead, you probably know the beater handshake. So you get together with somebody, you just walk up to someone you don't even know, and your hand is toward their chest, and you're looking at it. And what people would do is they look at, and they turn it over to look at the back. This happens specifically with bead embroidery. So it needs to look nice from the back. It needs to not fall apart. It needs to not have stray threads. The quality, it matters. It matters a lot. I learned, you know, a lot of beaders, they did some stuff when they were children. He had mothers, grandmothers, aunts, uncle, whatever, teaching you how to knit, how to crochet, when I was in 3rd grade, I got pillowcases in my Easter basket to do cross stitch pillowcases. And I still have them. And I look at them and I laugh, and I look at my younger self. Anyway, drilled into me, it's not good unless it also looks good from the back. So quality design, it should wear well. It should keep its shape. It should keep its form. If it's supposed to be flat, it should stay flat. If it's supposed to be curved, it should stay curved. But beyond that, when you're thinking about design and you're selling things, you need to look at just not your own personal taste, but what other people would like. I tend toward the classic, and I like to let the focal flow. But it still, your mindset is a little different. So when you're selling, you're also looking at the cost benefit. You need to enjoy doing it. This is the thing where I'm wearing something at a show or a big piece, and you're always asked, how long did it take you to do that? And my answer always is, if you're looking at the clock and you're counting the hours, you shouldn't be doing it. In other words, it takes a long time, but if you're enjoying yourself, that time sort of flies. I like to use materials that have a high perceived value, which is another reason that I'm drawn to stones. If you've got tiger eye in something, or you can tell them, oh, this is picture jasper, and this is whatever happens to be in is impression jasper. Then there is a perceived value that people will pay for. But bottom line, you need to enjoy doing it. When I started out beading and selling stuff, there was a saying that you'd be lucky with beading to get $5 an hour. And if you weren't, willing to do that, then, that would be pretty tough. You look critically at the construction. You look at the colors, not just your taste, but other tastes. Red was a really hard color for me to use. I can use red now, but it took me a while to become comfortable with using red. But there's red people, there's purple people. You need to be able to work in a lot of different kinds of colors. So here we got some reds here. I'm into red now. So design acceptance matters. And let's get back to pendants. So pendants are just a lot easier accepted by the general public than a massive thing going around the whole. You have so many women going, oh, I'm too small to wear that. Well, they're not, but they think that. And so pendants just make it easier. The other thing I have to say is that, and this goes whether you're selling it or not, when you make something, you see every single flaw. And my advice is to try not to obsess about it, and don't put your face right on it. That's not how it's seen. Go from a distance and look at it as someone else would. Then you can make your decision. And be gentle with it. It's your baby. Don't be so critical. Because the other thing is that there's only one stitch in beading that I absolutely hate, and that's the frog stitch. Rip it. I will do it when I have to, but I try not to have to. I look at, if I end up doing something or whatever, I often look at it as a design opportunity. Well, how can I work this in? Well, maybe I should have done this. Maybe this is my subconscious telling me that this is kind of what needs to happen. So, and I've had a lot of things where, oh my gosh, I've completely changed the design just because I don't want to do any frog stitching. And I've been really happier, and they've worked out better. So workmanship also gets into, this is one of the biggest debates in bead embroidery, I think, and that's gluing versus bezeling. Look, I use glue. I use glue to hold it down, but I always bezel it. If it's not sewn on, like it's a bead that actually has a hole in it and stitched to it, then I have a bezel. I cannot just glue it. I can't recommend just gluing it. And this has to do with my personal experience. Early on in my beading career, I met someone, and what she did is she restored antique beaded purses. And she was showing me some stuff. And she goes, see here. Every place where there was glue, it had disintegrated. And it's not just the glues of that time. Glues of this time will do that too. And I don't want my beadwork years from now to be disintegrating. and glue works until it doesn't. You know, fun thing, go into, you know, Salvation Army, you'll see, oh, bolos can sometimes have these just amazing cabochons in there. Well, your fingernail, you can pluck that thing right out because the glue has all dried up. So I'm not a big fan of glue. If you want to use glue, go ahead. I'm not telling you not. I'm explaining in my evolution how my experience has influenced my judgment and how I see things. One of my biggest disasters, I don't know if you remember, but years ago, everybody's always looking for the best beading thread, right? That's everybody has their favorites and all. Well, Kevlar thread came out for beading, and everybody jump on board. This is well, gosh, they make bulletproof vests out of these. Talk about strong. This stuff is wonderful. Of course, I jumped on board. I made a couple of necklaces. One ended up in a gallery, and about 3 months and it sold. And about 3 months after the customer had it, they brought it back in because it was just falling apart. The beads were just dropping off, and it was the Kevlar thread. So if you do a little research, you'll see that they have to replace bulletproof vests every 5 to 7 years. And by definition, it's because the threads, they just kind of turn to powder and they dissolve. So because you have the disaster, you never want to have that again. And so you become very cautious. So I'm a very cautious. You give me my Nymo, you give me my Silamide. I like the Soho, the Sono and the other new ones. Great, they're great, but you will not find me using Fireline. And this, it's just, and I know people love it. That's great. Okay, I'll confess. I emailed the firm that makes Fireline. I said, look, I want to use this product in beadwork. So what I want to know is 30 years from now, when I look at my beadwork and whatever, will it be okay? And they wrote back and they said, we do not create this product for those kinds of intentions. So we can't tell you one way or another. And I said, okay, that's cool. That's fine. I like my Nymo and Selenite and Sono and this and that. So anyway, your personal experience influenced you as a beater and what you like. So when I started out, it was like most people, it was stringing. And then you get into smaller beads and brick and peyote and loom. I love loom. I do not like peyote. I can do, and when you say that, everybody go, oh, no, I'll show you. No, I can do it. I can do a lot of things with, I just don't enjoy doing it. So, but at the time, when I started out, books were really scarce, and the beads had small holes, and there was not. So Tandy had, like 5 colors of seed beads, and they were really pretty nasty things, and check beads, but they had Beads to Buckskins, which was a series of books, primarily Indian in nature. So they teach you how to tan leather and how to make moccasins and all that kind of stuff. But in volume 6, they had some beadwork with cabochons, and that was it. Blew me away. That's it. I want to do that. Unfortunately, it didn't have to really instructions on how to do it. So, but I'm a determined person. So I came up with my own way to do things. And kind of been there ever since. So fed by the lapidary shows. So in California, every county here has a lapidary society, and all of these societies have bead shows once a year. And so you get bead vendors, and you get, it's great. All these old men, they spend a year grinding stones, and then they sell their cabochons and stuff. It's just so fun to talk to them. So for me now, because of all this experience, I kind of grew up starving. And so now if I see something and I can afford it and I like it, I buy it. I don't care how big my stash is. I don't care my stash is going to take me 100 years to get through. I love my stash. When I buy something, so my sister's like, well, why would I buy that? I don't know what I would do with it. I was like, what? That doesn't even enter my mind. I don't care if I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't care if I have it for 10 years. The necklace I'm wearing now, which is one of my current favorites, I've had that cabochon. I didn't know what it wanted to be I had it for over 10 years before I made it into this, and I love it. And that's fine with me. I like visiting my stash and stroking it and going through it. I love collecting stones, beads, big beads, which I use like cabochons. I love, I need to have every color of seed. The most fun for me is conceiving of a design and being able to find everything that I need for whatever wild idea that I have, and it's already in my stash. I don't need to buy anything. I love it when I can do that creation, and it just makes me giggle. So this is the necklace on the left. That's the one I have on. I'd had that cab for over 10 years. So I do like to work with lamp work. Sometimes I put the stones aside. I just have a need for the intensity of color, and glass just has a different feeling. It's a different talking to my soul. So so my stash has to have a lot of that in it too. I have often told people or friends that my beadwork is schizophrenic. That if you took the body of work and you looked at it, you go, no, this isn't one person. This is somebody who either has a multi-personality disorder or they're schizophrenic or whatever. And they say, no, I can always tell your stuff. No, I get it. They think they can, and they often do, but sometimes I will absolutely surprise them. And a lot of that has to do with my philosophy in books. So this goes back to my hunger. I wasn't hungry for projects. I was hungry for somebody to show me how to do things. And so my purpose in books is to show people how to do things, not to tell them what to do, but to show them how to do. And if I'm going to do that, then I need to be able to represent different kinds of tastes and schemes and things like that, and to show examples in my book so that it's not all just me. I mean, like this bottom bracelet, I am not a pink person. I'm not fond of pink. I find pink a little bit difficult to deal with unless it's a deep rose colored, but I force myself to get into a lot of different things so that it would appeal to a lot of different people. So so that's what happened. So I love beads. I love beaders. I find beaders to be, they're curious, they're rebels, but in a good way. And they're just original people, even if they never did their own design or they're creators. There's something that happens within your brain and within your soul to take a pile of just stuff and be able to make something of it. I like to design my own. I just got used to it. It's just kind of it's like too within my DNA. But even if when I'm doing classes, I encourage people to come up with their own design or do their own thing. So we'll talk about this profound need to create, not just to adorn, but to create. So it's something that happens in the brain. It brings a kind of calm. There's a zen and a rhythm with beading. Let's be clear, mental health institutions teach beading. And they do that because there's something magic that happens while you're beading. You know, if you're angry, they tell you to count to 10. I want you to think about how many times you've counted to 10 as you're beading. So it is a centering and it helps. I seriously think that they should do a study, and I will bet you that beaders do not get Alzheimer's at anywhere near the rate of the general population, because it's a brain exercise. You're trying to find the hole, you're looking at this, you have a plan that you're executing, you're counting, you're doing things, and you're making. So my mental health is very important to me and to my husband. And there are times he said, you know, you need a bead time, some studio time, please just go in there. And he's right. I mean, I just it just helps my brain work. So because the thing about beading, it's not this end result that it's about. It's also the process, that we love doing the process. If we don't love doing the process, then we wouldn't do it. We'd do some other kind of beading or whatever. And I have had one person in all these years take a class of bead embroidery. She said, I just don't like it. It's like sewing. I'm like, oh, okay. But she's still a beader. So you find part of the beading that you love, whether it's original or a pattern. It keeps you young. You're constantly learning because you've got this pile of stuff and you're learning how that all comes together step by step into the final end product. When you do this, you kind of see the world differently. When I see any kind of jewelry, I don't care what it's made out of, my mind will translate it into beads. One of my, I was at the bank, and here we're in line, and the lady in front of me, her hair color was atrocious for hair. She had some dyeing, she had some graying and brown. And anyway, it was terrible for hair, but I went, that would make the most gorgeous beaded pouch. And so you see things differently. I saw this looked like terrible hair color, but I saw it as a beaded pouch. So there's different ways of seeing the world, and it keeps you young. You're constantly learning. So just one more mention. How did I get there? When I was teaching in a class, and my students were saying, you got to write a book, you got to write a book, because they had been trying different things and had different teachers for beading, and there wasn't a beading with cabochons out there. And so I did. And so that led me kind of to where I am here now. I want to back up for a second because I think that this is really important. So this is not mine. This is a designer, Natalia Grion. And she clearly sees beads in a very unique way. This is just stringing. Her technique is stringing. But there's no such thing as just stringing. Drives me nuts when if you're new to beading and you're stringing, excellent. There's no way that you have to apologize. There's no just stringing. Stringing is an art form, and you will take it from however simple you want it to be, which is gorgeous. A simple strand of knotted pearls has been valued throughout time. It's gorgeous. To what Natalie does, which is a lot more over the top with her stringing and her beads and everything. But there's no just about what this gal does. And there's no just about any kind of beading. So we end up with my motto. Life is too short to wear ordinary jewelry. I want you to keep that in mind. And then the ancillary, which is friends, do not let friends wear ordinary jewelry. So that's it. That's what I've got. Can you bring the people? Do I have to end this, I guess?
Oh my God, you are so amazing, Jamie. We love you.
I'll close this off unless somebody wants me to go back to something that it flashed by too much, or can I go ahead and close this?
Yeah, sure. You're just hit stop share and then you'll see all the people again.
Okay, great. So if anybody has any questions, although you know me inside and out now, I mean, oh, less than ordinary. Oh, thank you. Hi, Marcia. It's so nice to talk to you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, everybody. Yeah, I hope to keep you entertained as I droll down about myself, because really, who cares about that? But I think that sometimes we don't take ourselves seriously enough. Beading is super important, and that is shown throughout all of the history. So
it's so amazing. And the way you bring every little bit of it to life and all the different colors and spectrums. I mean, you must have showed over 200 photos. And how many of those beautiful pieces do you still have?
I have quite a few of them. And a lot of them I don't, but they're a perfect example of what I was trying to say. So I left. So I hope I gave you some chuckles. I want to know, you count out, what are you guys, how many casual beaders you got? How many users, addicts? My guess is that this group has a whole lot of addicts.
OMG, absolutely.
Well, that's why you're here, is because you're an addict.
Correct. But we also have a lot of influencers, makers in our bead society. Was started by Diane Fitzgerald in 1989.
Oh, she's a pusher for sure.
Exactly. She's a major pusher. And so that's why, inspired so many locals. And now since we're Zooming, we have members from 30 states. So we really have just an incredible group. And with your tonight, you also get a complimentary 1-year membership to our group. So we'll be sending you invites to our private Facebook group and everything. And so we hope that you won't be a stranger.
Oh no, I won't be. This is wonderful. I'll join you. Send me the invites. That'd be great. Because you still need your enablers when you're a pusher. You need the yeah, the addiction is still there. It's just gone beyond addiction.
But it keeps us, out of trouble and off the streets.
Exactly. And productive.
Absolutely. The world's a more beautiful place because we're all out there creating.
Exactly.
My motto is addiction loves company.
Yes, it does. And hey, Amanda, enabler hubby, good for you. That's great. When you have an enabler hubby. A friend of mine, her husband would go out of town, and he'd go to the bead stores when he was out of town, and he would buy up a whole bunch of stuff for her. Amazing. And I mean, it would be a couple $100 worth of beads and stuff. We all wanted to trade husbands with her. I mean, come on.
My husband, he'll, when we go on road trips or whatever, he literally plans them based on whether there's a bead store nearby. I can visit.
Excellent. That
had
kind of support is so important.
I had the experience of going into a local bead store, and there was 2 women in there, and they were sorting through all the beads, and pretty soon this man comes in and he says, "I thought you said you were only going to be a half an hour." And I started laughing, and he just glared at me, and I was like, "I'm sorry."
A half an
Sorry,
hour.
not sorry.
Yeah.
That was just an excuse to get in the door because nobody takes a half an hour in a bead store.
No, half hour is if I know exactly what I'm looking for. I have a specific project that I want to get finished right away.
Yes, you're going back
out.
to your beads with beads.
Yep.
My husband would take me to Taylor's Falls bead store because
Yep.
there was a ice cream shop a couple of doors down, and I'd get him a strawberry malt, and then I could go get beads.
There you go. There you go.
My husband, one time, we had nothing happening. You know, it was just kind of a lazy day. So he actually suggested that we drive up to Alexandria and go to the bead shop.
Okay, he's a keeper.
Just because we had nothing else to do.
I need one of those.
I found a bead shop in Greece, and I told my husband he was going to have to sit there and wait while I went into her bead shop and did some shopping. He waited.
Absolutely, that's great. As long as they'll wait. So my husband doesn't give me any problem with it or purchases or anything, because he used to smoke cigars, and let's be clear, I don't like the smell of a cheap cigar. And so he smoked expensive cigars. So, you know, he'd go through $20 cigars, and it was like, listen, hon, you know, he buys a box of cigars. I go, I don't want to hear anything at all ever about what I spend on beads, because when you're done, you got a pile of ashes and a stink. When I'm done, I got a beautiful necklace.
Yep.
But it did provide me with a lot of cigar boxes, which I love. He doesn't smoke them anymore, but that was fun. He's never given me a bad time, though he doesn't want me to write another book. He wants to. I'm gonna be 70 at my next birthday. So he thinks that he should have a lot more say or monopoly on my time. Be able to go, you know, just, hey, we're going to go do this, we're going to do that, and not be dealt with. No, I got to get this done, I got to get that done, I'm working on this. But we'll see. I'm not sure he'll win that argument. I don't know that he thinks he's going to win the argument. So, well, good. Nobody has any questions. Thank you. Thank you, Beth.
Jamie, I've got to tell you that you really touched my heart, because this is something I also started beading in the 80s, and I've done a lot of other arts. And in the other arts I worked with, everyone was always very concerned about archival quality.
Yes.
And as I've talked to beaders, I mean, it's like, oh, well, we use this thread or this thread or this thread. I'm like, well, has anybody tested that for, you know, the life of it or endurance, or, you know, and of course not. And then, you know, all the beads start coming out and all the finishes that wear off and so on and so forth. And I've just been baffled, because I've talked to so many beaders, and it's like, I have it so ingrained into me so young that things need to last forever.
Well, you know, when you get to be 70 years old, you don't think of 25 years is all that much time. So the thing is, I mean, I have stuff that's 50 years old, and I would be upset if it had fallen apart. So one, I think age gives you, but it's also, you know, painters, they're very much into that archival quality and very sensitive, because she did collages and things that had a lot of depth and things like that. So she had more than just, it wasn't just a canvas with oil paints. It was a lot of different materials and stuff. So yeah, it matters, and how you frame things, but that's me. But I'm with you. I'm sometimes surprised at beaters, especially when you're putting together a very, I'm going to say, an heirloom piece. You're going to spend countless hours on this collar, and there isn't a thought about the materials that are used in there and whether they're going to last. Because I'm telling you, you don't want, you're going to have that 25, 50 years from now. You're a young girl, and you don't want it to look different than it does the day that you finished it. And if you don't pay attention to some of these other issues with the quality and stuff. So I don't mind some coating, and especially with bead embroidery, because there's not rubbing that goes on. But again, when it's in the necklace part, then I won't use anything coated in the neck, because that wears bracelets. But when it's on the surface of bead embroidery, there's just not a lot of rubbing going on. So I'm fine with the Duracoat and things like that. Have some coat. Also, like, it's not just silver lined, but the color lined beads. If you're stringing color lined beads, because I made some eyeglass leashes, and they were color lined beads. A couple months later, color's all gone from the color line. They aren't that color anymore, because the inside strand just wiped it away.
Well, I just appreciate you talking about it, because I think that's a conversation that people at least need to think about, especially when they're making things for sale.
Yes.
And so it was very refreshing to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. And they can make their choice. I'm just saying where I come from. These are things that are important to me and why they're important. And I think if you're selling, they should be important to you. But that because you want that customer coming back. Actually, right?
There was a question, and she wanted to know about, are most of your pieces bead embroidery on or off loom?
If it's,
which I don't understand the question.
I don't understand the question either.
So Laura, do you want to ask your question in person? Unmute and talk.
Sure. On the pendants that you do, I was noticing you had different stitches on it. So I'm wondering, are your pieces mostly bead embroidery on a surface?
Yes.
Or are they off loom bead weaving?
It is mostly bead embroidery on a surface. I did show some things, rarities that were either loom bead weaving or off loom bead weaving. There were a few, but not really very many. Most of it is bead embroidery. That's what I love.
I was just curious what your technique was.
Yeah. So different beading with cabochons is just, the cabochons, but the other pieces, those are all, it's done on a surface.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Do you have a favorite surface?
My favorite surface is Lacey's stiff stuff. And I am so happy that they now come in red and a dark blue and black.
Really? Where do you, the red and the blue I've never seen.
They have her daughter, Lacey's daughter, has a website, which off the top of my head, I can't think of it right now, but they have a website and they sell all the, like Fire Mountain and various places, they just sell the white, but she's got black, red, dark blue, and white. I can look that up and I'll message one of you and you can pass on the information.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I like it to have a little stiffness to it because I find it easier to work with. Nothing has your needle go through it easier than laces. It is the easiest. I know starched felts are a whole lot less expensive, but you can get knots in them. And not only that, but if you take the edge of it and you scratch your finger on that edge, you're going to see little fibers going off.
Yeah.
You scratch the edge of laces, no fibers go. So it's a thin, and I don't want it to be thick. So a lot of the starched felts are thick. They're uneven when you scratch the edges. So I have some, and I'll use them for stuff, but I don't use them for really nice, when I'm making a nice necklace or bracelet or something like that. I might use them for a top of a, if I'm bead embroidering something for a top of a box or something like that. But yeah, and then backing, I like ultra suede.
Good to know.
Those are my favorites. And I don't, if you buy it direct and you know, buy the multi-packs so you get a price break. I just find it's not as expensive as it could be, and it gives me everything that I want. So my cost benefit, I know other things are less costly, but I gotta have that quality. And you only get, for me, I only get that with the laces. And I've dyed laces. I've dyed, and it holds dye really well. You just got to remember, to rinse it out really, really, really well, because if you use it and it's dyed and somebody splashes water, it'll stain the person's clothes if you don't have it rinsed really well.
I have a friend who tried to dye white laces red and then, but used, I think, tea or something, thinking, oh, it's all natural. And it came out a really pretty color until that happened. I think she wore it and she sweat, because you get hot in the summer. Yeah, that was the end.
Yeah, no, you can dye it. I use RIT dye, and you dye it. You cannot get a really intense color, but you can get a good color, and but you've got to let it dry out in the sun and then come back again and rinse it. Let it dry out in the sun, come back again and rinse it until the water is clear, and then you know that will never happen. Because I didn't know that necessarily until I gave someone a piece and they spilled some water and now their blouse got dyed purple. Oops.
You didn't guarantee the color.
I luckily it's a relative, so.
And what's your favorite glue to then tack down your pieces to then stay in place while you're bezeling around it?
Aleene's acid-free. It's if you remember Elmer's glue from when you were a kid, it's white like Elmer's, but it dries clear. It's not expensive at all. And it doesn't stink at all like those other glues. I'm just really repelled by the smell of some of those. So Aleene's, and also I recommend glue dots. So in scrapbooking supplies, you'll find they have dots, and they're permanent dots, and they're acid free, and you can get an immediate. I mean, those things hold. The only thing you need to be careful with is don't put it anywhere where you want a needle to go through, because a needle goes through those dots and it just kills the needle. You gum up your needle and thread, so you got to make sure you're not going to go through it. But for putting down small things, and they hold instantly, and they're really good. So acid-free glue dots and Aleene's acid-free. If I'm doing something and longevity is not an issue and I want to really use a strong glue. So this would be crafting kind of things. I use the welder, which is kind of like, what's the glue everybody uses?
E6000.
Yeah, it's like an E6000, except you buy it in the carpentry or in a hardware store. And so it's half the price because they're not sticking it to you as a craft glue. And it's called the welder, all purpose. You can get it on Amazon. And also, I've never had a tube of, so I rarely use it. And so I can get small tubes. But the thing is, and I've tried that with E6000, and after the first time I used it, I could never use it again because it would always dry up and gum up and I end up throwing it away. And the welder doesn't do that on me. So I can actually use the whole tube of the welder. Because there are times when you're at, so I'll use epoxy when I'm like, if you've seen my video on creating a pin or in the books, I'm taking a piece of flashing and I'm gluing the finding onto it. That'll be a 2-part epoxy type of situation. But that's, oh, okay. Our little cat decided to jump down from the shelf up here and say hello.
I have 3 dogs. I'm more than used to that.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was kind of shocking. Okay. Any other questions? Have you tried B7000 no odor? B7000, I am quite sure is not acid free. So although I don't like the odor isn't my primary objective. It's that it needs to be acid free. So B7000 was acid free, but I doubt that it is if it's made by the same people as the E6000. And you know, the Aleene's is really inexpensive. It's a great glue. And once it dries, it's permanent. It's not like Elmer's, which when it dries, if you put it in a bowl of water, it'll eventually, dissolve away. It's a permanent glue once it dries. So
I made an entire dress with Aleene's once.
did you really? Used it on the seams?
I used it on every seam, and I was in 4 different Halloween events around the cities.
Wow, how
It
cool.
was hilarious.
Well, they have washable.
That's what this was. It was washable fabric glue. And I was like, oh, I didn't have time to sew it. And so I thought, well, it might make it through one night. It made it through the whole series.
Yeah, now
That's my plug for Aleene's.
I have used, so I know that they have a washable one because I use the Aleene's washable. Like for instance, if I'm doing a fabric purse and I'm doing the beading separate, then I want to glue that on before I stitch it on, and I'll use the Aleene's washable because purses have to be washable. I'm sorry, they do. Or you cannot, if you gift it to somebody or you sell it to somebody or whatever, you cannot guarantee they're not going to wash it. They're going to wash it.
Or walk in a rainstorm.
Yes. See, that's the point. I have used on Lacey's permanent magic marker. And somebody was saying, oh, permanent magic marker is no good. I got caught in a sprinkler and it bled and all that. And I went, no. So I tested it out. Now, here's the deal. Whether you're using dye or whether you're using permanent magic markers or whatever, if within the next 2 weeks it gets wet, it will bleed. But as time goes by, it's permanent. It's not going to bleed. But so, because I took ones that I had colored before with a permanent marker and I ran them under the faucet and did whatever, no problem whatsoever. So I have a whole variety of colors of magic markers to be able to get any kind of color if I need to, but usually I like white, black, blue, red. Although I told her you need to get some gray You need to get gray and beige, and then I'll be complete.
Hey, Jamie, what do you use to string your necklace pieces from the look of your stones and whatever?
I use Acuflex. Now, I will tell you that in the 90s, if you were, and in, I'm not sure exactly when it stopped, but Acuflex is one of the twisted filaments. So it's the non-kink. If you used Tiger Tail and you entered something into a beading contest, you were immediately disqualified. And that's because it kinks. It's terrible stuff. But the Acuflex doesn't. So my eyeglass leash, you know, it depending on the attachment, this is a direct attachment. So this is thread in this, but most of, you know, my pendants, when I'm stringing something, I love using the Acuflex crimp beads and crimp covers. I start with a loop, a beaded loop, go through, and I end with a beaded loop, and I jump ring the findings on into that beaded loop. So that would be a beaded loop that I jump ring into. Yeah, so I use the 18 0.018 or something like that thickness of the Acuflex, and I've never had a problem with it.
It's also been around a long time.
Pardon me?
I said it's also been around a long time.
Yes, it has. And so if there was a problem with it, you'd know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I tested it out big time. But the problem, you know, with it's just so much faster. And I didn't for years. I was using thread. I'd use double thread. I'd go through it, I'd loop, I'd go through it, I'd loop, and I'd go through it again. So there were 6 strands of thread in the beads, and then the loops, you know, they doubled, and it was knotted here, knotted there, and everything. But that takes it takes quite a bit of time. But it was like, no. So I waited years before I used the Acuflex, and I was also influenced. It was like, yeah, if you had Tiger, I don't care how gorgeous your piece was. If you had Tiger Tail anywhere in it, in any kind of jewelry contest, that was it. In competition and whatever, you were immediately disqualified. And I think that that's right, because Tiger Tail is nasty in terms of kinking, and the idea that you would use that in a piece, they got to question what other quality issues are involved.
But it was cheap, and so that's why people used it, you know, and it was a learning thing, and then they never got out of it, I think, maybe.
Well, hopefully they switched over to the Acuflex, or I use Acuflex, but there's another manufacturer.
Soft Flex, Soft Touch.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the Beadalon 19 strand, you know,
Right.
that kind of thing. Yeah. So there's a few companies.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I have never, but you know, I tested it out myself, and I'll do that with beads. If I'm unsure of them, if they're metallic and I don't necessarily know where they came from or labels, because I've had people give me some beads, I take a bowl and I pour them in the bowl and I put them in the bathroom, because you get the moisture and the whatever. And I put a little piece of paper in there, the date that I put it there, because I want to be able, I go back 6 months later and I'll look at them and I'll stir them up. And I was like, can you see a change of color in the surface? I don't want them turning black on me. So I especially do this with any silver colored, unless they're specifically purchased and labeled as Duracoat, then I know that they're not going to tarnish. But other silver ones. I test them out. I'll test things. I'll beat them up.
Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. This has been a spectacular evening.
Oh my
Well,
God.
thank you. I've had a lot of fun. Been a while since I was in a bead group, so this has been just wonderful for me.
Yeah, we're really darn excited, and I am just so thankful. We've had such a wonderful inspiration for me, and so I'm glad that all of you are just as inspired as we are. And Jamie's a new part of our group, and every month we are just so excited to have you join us in one form or another, whether it's Zoom or in person. And so tell your friends, and our group will keep growing and growing and growing.
Excellent. Excellent. So you need to send me an address of where I need to send this, unless you want me to send it to you and you send it out, the necklace.
Yeah, you could send it to me because I will mail it or get it out to
Whoever,
yes. So
however
do
you
you
want.
want to tell everybody about it? We just talked about it with our board member, but but the rest of the people have not heard yet. And so
Well,
let's do you have the necklace with you? Otherwise we'll show the picture. There it is.
so here it is.
Wow.
I don't know if you can
Oh,
see it.
that's
It's mother of pearl, and then the fringes come out of it. It's mother of pearl beads in different shapes in the necklace part, and mother of pearl on the ends of the fringes, and that's mother of pearl there, and the seed beads. And we even have matching earrings.
Oh, lovely.
So that, but I thought it would be great for summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jamie
so
is
send me your
donating it.
message me on Facebook with your
Yes.
address, and I'll send it to you, and then you can, however you want to do it, raffle, whatever kind of thing.
Yep. So she's donating it to the Upper Bead Society so that we can have a raffle. We can figure out how we're going to see who's the lucky new winner of it. And so we're so excited. We're so thankful and inspired and rejuvenated all at the same time.
Good.
And that's generous. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So I hope you enjoy, and yeah, so I'm glad everybody, I had a good time.
Jimmy, I have to tell you, this is the best attendance we've had at any of our meetings, and 31 people have stuck around for the extended discussion. So, a testament to how well you've done. So
Well,
thank you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Great.
We are in complete awe. And so we look forward to our Let's Bead Live with Lisa on June 15th at 1 o'clock. Everybody look for your Zoom link. And that's a free event to everyone. So share with your friends and get more people coming and coming and coming so that we everybody can be happy. Because beading makes people happy, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank
I do
you.
need to hit stop recording, otherwise